Have you ever wondered what it would be like to rebuild an entire city from scratch? How do you keep the faith when everything around you is in ruins? In the heart of Jerusalem, a story of resilience and courage unfolds, and the man behind this feat is Nehemiah. But who was he? A builder, a leader, a visionary. And more importantly, how did he manage to inspire a people who had lost everything to believe that they could rebuild not only their homes, but also their lives? In this video, we will reveal Nehemiah's strategies for overcoming derision and discouragement. How did he turn mockery into motivation? How did he strengthen the community, not only physically, but spiritually? And what can we learn from his leadership that can be applied today? How can you practice the examples of Nehemiah presented in this video in your life? But Nehemiah's journey was not an easy one. How did he cope with fierce opposition and unexpected challenges? What was the role of the community in rebuilding the walls, and how did this change the course of history? With each new obstacle, Nehemiah showed that true leadership comes with perseverance and wisdom. We'll explore every twist and turn of this saga, every strategy adopted to keep morale high, and every lesson learned in the process of turning ruins into rebirth. Join us as we dive deep into the lesser-known aspects of this narrative. How did Nehemiah mobilize resources in times of scarcity? How did he ensure security while the walls were still being built? And how did he keep the vision of a prosperous future alive in the hearts of his people? These are just a few of the questions we'll answer by the end of the video, so get ready for a journey through time, where determination and faith write a new page in history. Stay with us and discover the secrets behind the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem, as we have included unpublished data, mainly in the middle to the end of this video. After watching, comment what you think, shall we? My name is Nehemiah, which means the Lord comforts. I was born in a land you know as Babylon, far from the home of my ancestors. I grew up learning about the greatness of Jerusalem, but also about its destruction and the exile of my people. I am known for my determination and faith, but I also carry with me impatience and a tendency to take on great burdens alone. It was the need to see my people thrive again that shaped me into the leader I am today. The story I'm about to tell you is how, after decades of exile, we led the restoration of Jerusalem. We, the children of Israel, were imprisoned and taken away from our promised land, fulfilling Jeremiah's prophecy of a 70-year exile. After Nebuchadnezzar's death, I saw the opportunity to return and rebuild not only the walls of our beloved city, but also the spirit of our people. Reflecting on this journey, I realized that every challenge faced was a lesson. The derision of enemies became a fuel for our resolve. With every stone erected, we strengthened not only the walls, but also our faith and unity. The rebuilding of Jerusalem was more than an architectural feat. It was the restoration of a people's identity and hope. Now, as I walk through the streets of Jerusalem, I see more than restored buildings. I see a resilient people who, guided by faith, have overcome adversity. I see children playing where there used to be rubble, and it gives me the certainty that our struggle was worth it. The story of Jerusalem is a testimony that even when all seems lost, faith and joint action can move mountains and rebuild entire cities. But allow me to take you deeper into this narrative. Let me share the quiet moments under the starry sky when doubts plagued me. How could we, a scattered and weakened people, face such an undertaking? It was then that I understood that my mission went beyond the reconstruction of stones. It was to rebuild hearts and minds. Every meeting with my compatriots was not just an exchange of work, but an opportunity to sow hope. And so with each dawn, our work moved forward, in spite of constant threats. Our enemies sneered. Even a fox would tear down these walls. But with each insult, our resolve grew stronger. We weren't just building walls. We were erecting a symbol of our renewed identity, a bulwark against despair. At the end of this endeavor, I look back and see not just a fortified city, but a transformed community. The reflections I share now are the seeds for future generations. Let them know that even in the face of adversity, unity and faith are the true forces that build not only cities, but also a lasting legacy. The sacking of the temple was a devastating blow, not only to the physical structure that represented the center of our worship, but also to the hearts and souls of our people. It was plundered by enemies who had no respect for the sacred, who saw in our sacred symbols nothing more than objects of value to be taken and displayed as trophies of their victory. They were ruthless invaders whose only desire was to weaken our resolve and extinguish the flame of our faith. They took with them not only the golden lampstands and consecrated vessels, but also the tablets of the law, which were the heart of our covenant with God, the essence of our identity. After the plunder, these desecrators didn't just take our treasures, they sought to dishonor what was most sacred to us. They spread the news of their conquest, mocking our misfortune, trying to break our spirits and leave us desolate and desperate. But what they didn't understand is that our true strength comes not from the objects that adorned the temple, but from the unwavering faith that each of us carries within us, the faith that unites us and gives us the strength to weather even the darkest storms. And so, even in the face of this calamity, we stand firm, ready to rebuild and restore what has been lost, strengthened by the certainty that our faith cannot be plundered. The news fell on me like a crumbling wall. The temple, our sacred temple, had been plundered. I felt my legs fail, and a deep sadness came over me. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I, Nehemiah, the wall builder, found myself reduced to rubble. I sat down, dejected, weeping for the temple, for our faith, for our history. I, Nehemiah, stood before the ruins of our beloved Jerusalem, feeling the weight of the sins of our people. I lifted up my eyes to heaven and cried out, "O Lord, God of heaven, great and fearful, who keeps covenant and mercy, hear the prayer of this thy servant." With my heart overflowing with sorrow, I confessed Israel's failings, admitting that we had deviated from God's commandments, bringing about our own desolation. I was reminded of God's words to Moses, words that carried both warning and promise. If we strayed, we would be scattered, but if we returned and obeyed, even from the ends of heaven we would be gathered. I pleaded for this reunification, pleading for God's protection and mercy, not out of merit, but for his great goodness. I stood up, looking up to heaven for a sign, and declared, "Remember, O Lord, the word which thou commanded Moses thy servant. If you sin, I will scatter you. But if ye repent and keep my commandments, though ye be in the uttermost part of heaven, from there I will gather you." I pledged to lead the rebuilding of Jerusalem, to renew the covenant with God, restoring the faith and identity of our people. I stood in prayer, my words resounding through the fallen stones, as I asked God to look at Jerusalem, at the desolate temple, and bring his people back to his protection. I promised to restore not only the walls, but also the heart and soul of Israel, rekindling the flame of faith and hope. "Hear, O Lord, my supplications," I continued. "Forsake us not in our affliction. Help us to rebuild what has been lost and to rise stronger than before." With renewed determination, I prepared myself for the task ahead, knowing that with God's help, we could overcome any adversity and rebuild not just a stone temple, but an eternal, spiritual home. And in the midst of my lament, a flame of hope began to burn. I reflected on our journey, on every stone we had laid together. If we were able to erect the walls, why couldn't we restore the temple? Why couldn't we once again unite our strength and faith to overcome this new adversity? So I stood up. I wiped away my tears and looked at the horizon. I knew that the road ahead would be arduous, but I also knew that we would not be alone. God would be with us, just as he was when he brought comfort to our hearts and strength to our hands. With this certainty, I began to plan the reconstruction, to mobilize the people, to rekindle the flame of hope. "Listen, children of Israel," I said, "the temple may have been plundered, but our spirit remains intact. We're going to rebuild, we're going to restore, we're going to show the world the strength of our faith." And so, with every brick, every prayer, every act of devotion, we begin to rebuild not only the temple, but also our identity, our community, our connection to the divine. Looking back, I see that every moment of despair was actually an invitation to transformation. Every tear shed watered the seed of resilience. And now, as the temple rises again, I know that our faith is unshakable, our resolve is steadfast, and our history is still being written. May this narrative inspire all those who face adversity. With faith, action, and unity, there is no challenge too great to overcome. I was at a crossroads of fate. The desire to rebuild the city of Judah burned in my heart like an inextinguishable flame. But to take the first step on this monumental journey, I needed the king's permission. As I prepared to submit my request, a silent prayer rose to the heavens. "Lord, guide my words and soften the king's heart," I whispered, seeking the strength and wisdom that can only come from the divine. With the king's cup in my hands, I approached him, my countenance revealing more than words could say. The king, perceiving my uneasiness, leaned over and asked, "Why do you look so sad, Nehemiah? This can only be sorrow of heart." I took a deep breath, knowing that this was the time to speak up, not just for myself, but for all my people. "May the king live forever," I began. "Why should I not be sad when the city, the place of my father's sepulchres, lies in ruins and its gates have been consumed by fire?" The silence that followed was fraught with tension and anticipation. The king, with a thoughtful look, asked, "What do you want?" It was now or never. "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor with you, I ask you to send me to Judah, to the city of the tombs of my fathers, that I may rebuild it." The king, with the queen at his side, meditated for a moment that seemed like an eternity. Finally, with a nod, he granted my petition. Reflecting on this defining moment, I realized that it was more than a simple request. It was the beginning of a new era for Judah, a sign of hope for a scattered people. With the king's permission in hand, I knew the journey would be arduous, but I also knew I wouldn't be alone. The Lord would be with me, and with his blessing, the walls of Jerusalem would rise again, a symbol of our renewed faith and unwavering determination. With the king's permission secured, I, Nehemiah, knew that the next step was crucial. "Your Majesty," I said, "for this mission to be successful, I need letters to the governors beyond the river, that they may permit me to pass until I reach Judah." The king nodded, and I continued, "And a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, to give me wood for the gates of the fortress that belongs to the temple, for the wall of the city, and for the house that I will enter." The king, with a generous gesture, also granted these requests. I had a plan and a turnaround deadline in mind, but I kept these details to myself, trusting that time would reveal the right time to share them. My mind was filled with strategy and logistics, but most of all, it was flooded with hope and the sense of purpose that guided me. As I prepared to depart, I reflected on the magnitude of the task that lay ahead of me. Rebuilding the city where my ancestors were buried was not only a matter of honor, but also an act of faith and a testament to our resilience as a people. I was determined to ensure the success of this mission, not only for past generations, but for future generations who deserve to inherit the promised land in its fullness. With the king's letters in hand and a heart full of determination, I set out for Judah. The journey would be long and full of challenges, but I was ready. Ready to face the unknown, ready to lead my people in rebuilding, and above all, ready to restore Jerusalem to its glory. Before the assembly in Jerusalem, I felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. "You see the situation we're in," I said, looking into the eyes of every man, woman, and child before me. "Jerusalem is in ruins, and its gates have been consumed by fire. Come, let us rebuild the walls of Jerusalem so that we may no longer be a laughingstock." I could see the hesitation in their eyes, the fear and uncertainty that the years of desolation had sown in their hearts. But I also saw a glimmer of hope, the spark of determination that only needed a breath to become a flame. "I am with you," I declared, "not as a governor, but as a brother. Together we can restore the strength and dignity of our city." Opposition from local leaders was immediate and fierce, Sanballat and Tobias, with their looks of contempt, questioned our ability to accomplish such a feat. "What do these wretched Jews do?" they sneered. "Are they going to restore the walls themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they be finished in a day? Can you bring the stones from the burnt rubble heaps to life?" But I didn't let myself be shaken. "The God of heaven is the one who will prosper us," I replied, my voice resounding with the force of truth. "We, your servants, will begin the construction. As for you, you have no share, right, or memory in Jerusalem." With that proclamation, I saw change happen. The people of Jerusalem rose up as one man. "Let's start rebuilding," they shouted, and the sound of their unit echoed through the surrounding hills. We took our tools and got to work, each side by side, each carrying the weight not only of the stones, but of our shared history. The opposition I faced from the city's leaders was like a thorn in my heart. I, Nehemiah, had expected challenges, but the pain of being confronted by those who were supposed to be by my side was a bitterness I had not anticipated. Why are they opposed to reconstruction? I wondered in my darkest thoughts. Why do you not see that the fortification of Jerusalem is the elevation of our people? Every word of doubt and derision from Sanballat and Tobias was like a stone thrown at my spirit. "Will these weak Jews grow stronger?" they sneered. "Will your God save you now?" But in my heart, I knew that our strength came not from muscle or weapons, but from the unbreakable faith and unity that defined us as a people. I turned to heaven, seeking comfort in the promises of the eternal. "Lord," I prayed, "do not let your words discourage us. Help us to stand firm and remember that every stone we lay is a step toward your glory." And with each dawn, I reaffirmed my commitment to not only rebuild the walls, but also to heal the divisions between us. "Come," I said to the citizens of Jerusalem, "do not allow the voice of opposition to drown out the call to action. Together, we are stronger than the ruins beneath our feet." And so, despite voices to the contrary, we, the people of Jerusalem, worked side by side, each of us a stonemason in the rebuilding of our common home. With each passing day, with each new section of the wall that was erected, I felt the opposition becoming less significant. Our resolve became stronger than his words, our union more solid than the stones we piled up. And I, Nehemiah, stood firm, guided by the vision of a restored Jerusalem, a home for all of us, free from fear and full of hope. It was this vision that sustained me, that propelled me forward, even as the shadows of doubt tried to obscure our path. And I knew that as long as we kept our faith and worked together, nothing could stop us. In the rebuilding of the Gate of Achaia, I witnessed a human miracle. Men and women, with no experience in construction, came together with a single vision to repair the gaps and restore the dignity of our city. Each brought what he had, his rudimentary tools, his calloused hands, his precious time, and most of all, a sense of ownership over the work to be done. Inclusivity was the cornerstone of this endeavor. Nobles and serfs, priests and merchants all worked side by side. Social differences faded in the face of the common task, and every stone laid was a testament to our union. The diversity of our personal backgrounds enriched the collective effort, as each contributed unique perspectives and diverse skills. The progress we have made, while impressive, has been a source of ridicule for Sanballat. "Can these weakened stones support a wall again?" he sneered. But his words did not discourage us. On the contrary, they solidified our resolve. With every laugh of derision, our resolve strengthened, and with every doubt cast, our union deepened. In the face of criticism and adversity, I chose not to confront opponents directly. Instead, I turned to God, pouring out my worries and requests in fervent prayer. "Hear, O our God, for we are despised," I prayed, "cause their mockery to fall on their own heads and deliver them as spoil into a land of captivity." And so, despite the challenges, we continue to rebuild. With each new dawn, our work moved forward, and with each sunset, the shadows of doubt were dispelled by the light of hope. I stood among my people not as a distant leader, but as a brother, a fellow worker, sharing both the burden and the joy of rebuilding. And together, we were not only building walls, but weaving the threads of a stronger, more united community than ever before. The rebuilding of the Jerusalem wall was both a physical and a psychological battle. I witnessed the discouragement that crept in even among the mighty men of the tribe of Judah. "The power of the porters is failing," they said, "and there is much rubble. We won't be able to build the wall." Exhaustion was visible on their faces. Calloused hands and tired looks reflected the immensity of the task. I stand before you to speak of the tribe of Judah, a line of lions, descendants of the patriarch Jacob himself. This tribe, known for its strength and courage, was the backbone of our people, the guardians of the royal lineage and the defenders of our land. They, who had once led the battles and protected our borders, now carried the weight of despondency on their shoulders. To see the tribe of Judah discouraged is to witness the fire of our collective spirit reduced to ashes. It is as if the very heart of Israel has lost its rhythm, for if even the mighty men of Judah doubt, what hope would be left for the rest of us? But I tell you, this is not the time for despair, but rather to rekindle the flame of determination that has always burned within every son and daughter of Judah. The importance of the tribe of Judah in the rebuilding of the wall of Jerusalem cannot be underestimated. They are the foundation on which our history is built and the symbol of our resilience. If Judah rises up, all Israel will rise up with them. And so, with every stone we put together, with every stretch of wall we erect, we are not only rebuilding our city, but also restoring the strength and honor of the tribe of Judah. For when Judah rises, the walls of Jerusalem rise high and unshaken, and our people unite as never before. And I will stand beside them stone by stone until our work is finished and our city shines again with the glory of old. It was not only the construction of new structures that challenged us, but also the need to clear the rubble of the past. Every stone removed, every fragment of our former glory that was lifted up and set aside was a reminder of what we had lost and what we were determined to regain. And as we struggled with fatigue and the magnitude of the destruction, our enemies lurked, seeking to take advantage of our vulnerability. Sanballat, Tobias, and the others conspired to launch a surprise attack, hoping to paralyze our work with fear and chaos. They will not know or see until we go into their midst and kill them and cause the work to cease, they planned. But I wouldn't allow fear to overwhelm us. "Do not be afraid," I said to the people. "Remember the Lord, great and fearful, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses." And so, with swords on one side and trolleys on the other, we continued the work, each defending his section of the wall, each determined not to let the darkness of night or the shadow of menace interrupt our progress. With each new day, our resolve grew stronger, and each night, our prayers ascended to heaven for protection and strength. And I, Nehemiah, stood watch, leading not only the rebuilding of a wall, but the fortification of a people, the restoration of a faith, and the renewal of a spirit that would never be broken. The rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem was, for me, Nehemiah, a mission that transcended mere physical construction. It was a fight for the soul of our community, for social justice, and for attention to the needs of each person involved. As the stones were laid, a financial crisis was unfolding, threatening the well-being of our people and the continuity of God's work in Jerusalem. The wealthiest among us, taking advantage of the vulnerability of the less fortunate, charged exorbitant interest rates, bringing many to the brink of ruin. Families were forced to mortgage fields, vineyards, and homes, and, in desperate cases, to sell their own children as servants, just to survive. The cry of injustice echoed through the streets, as loud as the sound of hammers against stones. "It's not right what you're doing," I exclaimed, confronting the nobles and officials. "Shall we not walk in the fear of our God and not in covetousness?" I challenged them to return the fields, the vineyards, the houses, and to renounce usurious interest. With the assembly assembled, they agreed, promising to do what was right in the eyes of God and the people. And so, with community restored and justice prevailing, we turn our attention to the walls. With each new day, our work moved forward, and with each sunset, the shadows of doubt were dispelled by the light of hope. I, Nehemiah, stood watch, leading not only the rebuilding of a wall, but the fortification of a people, the restoration of a faith, and the renewal of a spirit that would never be broken. And together, we were not only building walls, but weaving the threads of a stronger, more united community than ever before. In those days, as the stones of the wall of Jerusalem were laid, an even deeper work was being done in the heart of our community. I have taken concrete steps to restore justice and integrity among our people. With the authority granted to me, I announced the granting of interest-free loans, easing the burden of those choked by debt. From now on, I proclaimed, none of us will charge interest to your brother or sister. We will return the land, the vineyards, the houses, and we will cancel all the debts, for it is right in God's eyes and just to our brothers. The impact of those words was immediate. The richest among us, who had benefited at the expense of the less fortunate, now returned property and tore up debt contracts. The joy and relief that spread through the city was like fresh rain after a long drought. The workers, once overwhelmed with worry, now lifted every stone with renewed vigor, knowing that their families were safe and their property restored. The unity and solidarity that emanated from every corner of Jerusalem was palpable. And while enemies mocked and planned attacks, our community grew stronger from the inside out. Fear not, I said, for the Lord is with us. And with each dawn our resolve was renewed, and with each sunset our faith grew stronger. I, Nehemiah, stood firm, leading not only the rebuilding of a wall, but the rebuilding of lives and the restoration of a people who, united, were stronger than any stone we could lift. And so, together, we continued to build, not just with bricks and mortar, but with justice, compassion, and the promise of a better future for all. The turn toward righteousness in our community was sealed with a solemn pledge. I witnessed the nobles and officials of Jerusalem stand before the priests, taking an oath that would echo through the generations. Before God and our brethren, they proclaimed, we pledge ourselves to follow the way of righteousness, not to oppress, to keep our promises, and to honor our debts. This oath was not a mere formality. It was the expression of a profound transformation. Hearts that had once been inclined to greed now turned to generosity. Where there was inequality, now equity emerged. And where despair had cast its shadow, now shone the light of solidarity. With this new foundation of integrity, the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls gained new impetus. Every day, with every stone laid, we felt the strength of our shared commitment. The workers, once discouraged by the burden of debt, now lifted every stone with joy, for they knew that every effort contributed to the common good. And while enemies continued to mock our efforts, our community grew stronger from within. Fear not, I said, for the Lord is with us. And with each dawn, our resolve was renewed, and with each sunset, our faith was strengthened. And so together we continued to build, not just with bricks and mortar, but with justice, compassion, and the promise of a better future for all. And I knew that as long as we kept our faith and worked together, nothing could stop us. The completion of the Wall of Jerusalem was not only an architectural achievement, but a milestone in our spiritual restoration and our commitment to the worship of God. I, Nehemiah, saw the divine hand at work among us, allowing the great task to be completed in just 52 days. A feat that many believed impossible, but which has become a reality before our eyes. However, the journey was marked by internal challenges that revealed the complex political and social dynamics of our time. The ambiguous relationship between the nobles of Judah and Tobiah, the opposer, was a reflection of the tensions that permeated our reconstruction. Despite his opposition, some nobles maintained ties to Tobias, which led to mistrust and questioning. but with wisdom and discernment, we faced these adversities, keeping our focus on the greater work that united us. To reaffirm the centrality of the worship of God, I have appointed people in charge of security, praise, and religious services. Guards were posted at strategic points, while Levites and priests were assigned to lead the people in prayer and songs of gratitude. These acts symbolized our devotion and the essential role of faith in our community. In addition, I mobilized the people for the genealogical registration of the inhabitants. This painstaking effort has not only preserved our heritage, but also reinforced the sense of belonging and continuity between generations. Each name recorded was an affirmation of our identity and history, a vital link in the chain that connected us to the past and guided our path into the future. The rebuilding of the walls and the revitalization of our faith were testimonies of what we can achieve when we work together, with a common purpose and under God's blessing. And I remained as a witness and servant of this story of renewal, aware that every stone placed and every prayer lifted up were parts of a divine plan much greater than ourselves. And so, with the walls erected and hearts turned heavenward, Jerusalem was reborn, not just as a fortified city, but as a home of faith, hope, and unwavering commitment to the Lord's way. Ao refletir sobre a jornada que trilhamos juntos, eu, Nehemiah, vejo mais do that the rebuilding of walls. I see the rebuilding of lives and the renewal of a commitment to the divine. The stones we erect are symbols of our resilience, our faith, and our ability to overcome adversity. I invite you, who have followed my story, to reflect on your own life. Just as the walls of Jerusalem were erected stone by stone, our lives are built by daily actions and choices. Every challenge we face is an opportunity to strengthen our character and reaffirm our values. Think of the walls you have built in your life. Are they barriers that protect you or walls that isolate you? The hardships you face can be turned into stepping stones to reach new heights, just as the rubble of Jerusalem gave way to a fortified city full of hope. May the story of our rebuilding inspire you to seek restoration in areas of your life that may be in ruins. May you find strength in the community around you, and may you build something lasting and meaningful together. And above all, may your faith be the foundation upon which everything else is built, unshakable and eternal. Just as Jerusalem rose from the ashes, may each of us rise from the rubble of our past struggles, renewed and ready to write the next chapters of our stories. May we look back and see not only what was built, but what was learned and how we grew. And now, as the walls of Jerusalem stand firm and strong, I, Nehemiah, leave this narrative to you. May it be an invitation to build, restore, and renew, not only in stone, but in spirit and truth. I'm Nehemiah, and that was my story. And if you've been inspired by this story of faith, determination, and community, I invite you to join us on more journeys like this one. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with those who may also be looking for inspiration to rebuild and renovate. Together, we can continue to build stories that uplift, unite, and strengthen. Leave your like, comment on your reflections, and be part of this community that, like the walls of Jerusalem, stands strong and resilient. See you next time.